At 3 a.m., the voice came from two directions at once. Same voice, same words, slightly out of sync, like an echo that had learned to breathe on its own. Help me, help me. Something was outside the tent, not moving the way animals move, 40 feet out, then 30, no sound between, just closer. Breath. Danny had warned us. He'd told us exactly what it was, what it wanted, and what would happen if we went toward it. We stayed anyway. That was our mistake. 4 days into a week-long camping trip in the Chusca Mountains, in the high country of the Navajo Nation, and everything still felt fine. There were 4 of us. Me. Danny, the kind of man who stays calm when everything else is falling apart. His girlfriend Priya. And Marcus, who'd suggested the trip in the first place, because a brutal divorce had hollowed him out, and he needed the kind of silence that cleans you out. Danny has DNA ancestry on his mother's side. He knows this land. He respects it in a way the rest of us, raised on concrete and convenience, don't fully understand. When we arrived, he had one rule. Don't be loud after dark. Don't draw attention. Breath. We assumed he meant bears. We were wrong about that. The first night passed without incident. The second night is when I heard it. We'd gone to bed around 10. I was almost asleep when it drifted in from somewhere out in the dark. A voice, human, distant. Help me. I was unzipping the tent before I'd thought it through. Danny was already outside, standing perfectly still, facing the trees. He'd clearly never gone to sleep. Breath. Someone's out there, I said. We have to. No. His voice was flat, final. I tried again. Danny, someone is asking for. Keep your voice down. He turned and looked at me. I have known Danny for 11 years. I had never seen that expression on his face. Get back in the tent. No flashlight. No noise. But there's someone. No, he said very quietly. There isn't. I stood there and listened. The voice came again, from a slightly different direction than before. Help me. That's when I noticed something wrong beneath the words. It was clearly human, right pitch, right cadence, 2 recognizable English words. But it landed flat, like a recording played back by something that had heard the sounds without ever understanding what they meant. I went back inside the tent. I didn't sleep. In the morning, Danny explained. Not everything. I don't think he was willing to say everything, but enough. He told us about the Yi Naldlushi, what outsiders call skinwalkers. He said they were real. His grandmother had told him since he was small that there were things in these mountains that were not what they appeared to be, that something had been circling our camp in the night. Marcus laughed, nervously. How do you know it wasn't someone who needed help? Danny looked at him for a long moment, because of what it was saying. He let that sit. These things learn sounds. They mimic what they hear. Not animal calls, human sounds. He paused. Think about what sounds a human makes when one of these things finds them. The fire popped. Help me, Priya said quietly. She'd gone pale. Danny nodded. That's what it knows. That's all it's heard. Over and over, for a very long time. That's the only reason it says it. Nobody spoke. We should have left that morning. Danny wanted to go. Priya wanted to go. Marcus and I talked them into staying. One more day. We'll be careful. We won't go out after dark. But here's the thing about fear in daylight. It lies to you. With coffee in your hand and the fire going and the mountains bright and ordinary, it becomes very easy to convince yourself that what happened in the dark was something else, something explainable. Breath. We stayed. That night it got closer. I know because I could hear it moving, and the way it moved was wrong. Animals move with logic, with patterns through underbrush that make sense. This was different. Completely still for a long time, then simply somewhere else. No transition, no sound of crossing distance. Just closer. Breath. Help me. 40 feet, maybe. Help me. 30. And then something that made every hair on my body stand up at once. The voice was coming from two directions. Not alternating. Simultaneously. Two identical voices, slightly out of sync, both producing the same words in the same flat, learned cadence. Breath. Help me, help me. I grabbed Marcus's arm. He was already awake. Neither of us moved. It stayed outside the tent for what felt like an hour, probably 15 minutes. But time moves differently when you're lying completely still in the dark, trying not to breathe too loud, listening to something that learned its only words from dying people circle your camp. Then it was gone. Not gradually, not fading, just gone. Danny had us packed and moving before dawn. Still dark, which felt wrong. I wanted light, I wanted to see, but he said movement was safer than waiting. He led us out with one small flashlight kept low to the ground, and not one of us spoke the entire 2-mile walk to the trailhead. We were almost to the cars when Priya grabbed Danny's arm. At the edge of the tree line, 60 feet out, something was standing in the pre-dawn gray. Tall. Too tall. The proportions almost human, but not quite. The limbs slightly too long. The head sitting at the wrong angle on the neck, like something that had learned the shape of a person from a description rather than from ever being one. Breath. Completely still. Watching us. Danny kept walking. Slow. Steady. He didn't look at it directly. He said, without turning his head, "Don't look at it. Don't stop walking. Get in the cars." I looked anyway. I wish I hadn't. Because in the moment before I forced my eyes away, it shifted its weight, a small adjustment, and I heard it, very softly, from 60 feet of gray morning air. Help me. And it sounded hopeful. Sigh, we've been home for weeks now. The four of us have talked about it, run through every rational explanation we could find, and discarded them one by one. Danny told me something a few days after we got back, when it was just the two of us. Something he hadn't said in front of the others. Breath. He said his grandmother told him that the reason they learn those specific words, those two above any others, is 'cause of frequency. They learn what they hear most, and what they hear most in the specific situations where they encounter people is someone at the very end of their options. Someone in their final moments, realizing they need another person to come to them. Help me. Danny said his grandmother told him the worst part isn't that they say it. The worst part is what it means about how it learned. At some point, a very long time ago, one of them heard those words for the first time, came closer to see what they meant, watched what happened to the person saying them. Breath. And learned. I don't go camping anymore. Late at night, when it's quiet and I'm most of the way asleep, I think about that figure at the tree line, how still it was. How long it must have been doing this. How many camps it circled before ours. How many people heard two words drift out of the dark and made the mistake of moving toward them. I think about how it sounded hopeful. And I turn on the lights. And I wait for morning. If this story stayed with you, you're not alone. There's something about the Chuska Mountains that people who know them don't talk about casually. Breath. If you want to go deeper into this kind of storytelling, Audible has an entire catalog of horror and folklore that will make tonight's video feel tame. Get 30 days free at Audible.com ep free trial. Some of those titles deal with exactly this territory, encounters that don't have clean explanations from people who were there. Breath. Here's the question I can't shake. That thing had been saying those words for a very long time. Long enough to sound hopeful when it said them. What do you think it learned those words from, and how many people came closer before someone finally didn't? Leave your theory in the comments, and save this one. It's the kind of story you'll want to share at 2 a.m. when someone tells you they're going camping next weekend. Subscribe for a new nightmare every week. Keep the lights on.